It was just another rainy Tuesday afternoon in downtown Chicago when billionaire tech CEO Marcus Langley stepped into a quiet little diner to escape the chaos of a business deal gone sideways. Known for his sharp mind, his billion-dollar empire, and a heart buried somewhere beneath his success, Marcus wasn't the type to notice much outside his world of numbers and negotiations. But that changed the moment his eyes met the nervous gaze of a young waitress refilling his coffee. Her name was Emily, early 20s, polite, and clearly used to being overlooked. She moved through the diner with quiet grace, but Marcus noticed something most wouldn't. Every time she leaned forward to serve a table, she'd instinctively tug her necklace beneath her shirt, hiding a small silver cross. It wasn't a flashy gesture, just quick and subtle, but it struck him. Why would someone hide something so personal, so meaningful? At first, he'd brushed it off. People have their reasons. But then she apologized for bringing his order late, eyes cast down, almost like she was scared of doing something wrong. That's when it hit him. This wasn't just about the necklace. This was about something deeper, something painful. Marcus had grown up with his own share of struggles before fortune changed his life. He recognized the look in her eyes, the kind of quiet fear that doesn't come from serving coffee, but from living in a world where even your beliefs feel like a burden. He couldn't stop thinking about it. As the meal went on, he tried to make small talk, just to see if she'd open up. But her walls were high, too high. Still, when she stepped away to help another customer, he caught a glimpse of her reflection in the diner mirror. She was pulling the necklace out again, just for a second, touching it like it was her only comfort in the world. Then it disappeared beneath her collar just as fast. He knew that feeling, the need to hide who you are to feel safe. What he didn't know yet was the heartbreaking truth behind it. What had happened to Emily that made her hide her faith? And why, after all his years of power and wealth, was this small moment affecting him more than any boardroom battle ever had? He had no idea that what he was about to learn would change both of their lives forever. Marcus sat there longer than he planned, sipping coffee that had long gone cold. Something about Emily kept pulling at him, a quiet sadness that didn't match the warm smile she forced every time she approached a table. For a man used to reading investors and billion-dollar contracts, her eyes were a puzzle he couldn't look away from. And the cross necklace, barely visible, yet hidden with such urgency, kept replaying in his mind. He asked the manager for her name under the excuse of complimenting her service. "Emily, sweet girl," the manager said with a shrug. Keeps to herself. Works double shifts most days. Doesn't talk much. That only deepened Marcus's curiosity. Why would someone so young seem so guarded? Later that night, back in his penthouse overlooking the city, Marcus couldn't sleep. He thought about the way Emily clutched the necklace like it was a lifeline. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It meant something. And whatever it meant, she felt the need to hide it. That bothered him. Marcus wasn't exactly religious himself anymore. He had grown up going to church with his grandmother, but after she passed and life got complicated, so did his faith. Still, he remembered the comfort it brought him in the hardest times. The idea that Emily felt she couldn't show that comfort in public stirred something unexpected in him. The next day, he returned to the diner, not because he was hungry, but because he needed answers. Emily was there, same uniform, same soft smile. But this time, when he looked closer, he noticed something else. A faint bruise near her collarbone, just barely covered by makeup and the edge of her shirt. His stomach sank. He didn't ask about it, but it added a new layer to the mystery. She was clearly hiding more than a cross. He gently tried to start a conversation. Asked about her plans, her family, where she was from. But she kept her responses short, polite, and carefully neutral, the way someone talks when they've been taught not to say too much. Marcus didn't push, he just listened, and before she walked away, he looked her in the eye and said, "You don't have to hide who you are." For a second, she froze. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something, but instead she just nodded, eyes suddenly glassy, and turned away. He didn't know it yet, but those words had cracked something open. Marcus didn't show up at the diner just once after that. He came back the next day, and the next. Always during the slower hours, always sitting at the same booth in the corner. Emily started to notice. She wasn't sure if he was just being kind, or if he was one of those rich men who liked to play savior. But there was something different about him. He didn't ask too many questions, didn't try to get too personal. He just talked about his work, about music, about little things that didn't feel heavy. Still, Emily kept her guard up. She'd learned the hard way that kindness usually came with expectations. People noticed the cross before, people said things. At her last job, she was told it made customers uncomfortable. Then one day, she got sent home for refusing to take it off. That was the beginning of her silence. From then on, she learned to blend in, no opinions, no beliefs, just do your job and stay out of the way. But Marcus kept showing up. One afternoon, he left a book on the table, a worn copy of Mere Christianity *. No note, no explanation. Just a small gesture left beside the receipt. She recognized the title. Her father used to read it out loud when she was little, before things went bad. Before he lost his job. Before the shouting started. Before he left. She stared at the book for a long time after he walked out the door, unsure if she should take it home or throw it away. What Emily didn't know was that Marcus had done his own digging, not in a creepy way, just enough to understand who she was. He had a way of finding things out. He learned she was putting herself through night school. That she lived in a run-down apartment near South Halstead. That she'd been in and out of foster care for a few years before getting her GED. He didn't want to cross any lines, but something inside him couldn't let this go. Not just because of her, because her silence reminded him of his younger sister who disappeared from his life years ago after walking away from her faith and the pain it brought her. The more he saw Emily, the more he realized this wasn't just about a necklace. It was about freedom, about shame, and about the cost of believing in something when the world tells you not to. Emily knew something was changing, not just with Marcus, but within herself. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen, not as someone to fix, but as someone worth listening to. Still, she didn't trust it. She had learned not to trust too easily. That kind of hope had a way of disappearing just when she needed it most. One rainy evening, near closing time, Marcus came in again, this time looking different. He was tense, distracted, like he'd been carrying the weight of something all day. He sat in silence, barely touching his coffee. Emily sensed it immediately. When she brought the check, he looked up at her, eyes tired but serious. "I need to ask you something," he said quietly. "Why do you hide it? The cross?" Emily froze. She glanced around the nearly empty diner, then quickly tucked the chain back under her shirt, like a reflex. Her heart pounded. She wasn't ready for this conversation, not with him, not with anyone. But something in his voice made her pause. There wasn't judgment, just hurt, maybe even guilt. "I've had people say things," she said softly, barely above a whisper. "Some jobs told me not to wear it, said it made others uncomfortable, that I was pushing my beliefs. So I stopped showing it." Marcus nodded slowly, taking in every word. He looked like he wanted to say something, but stopped himself. Then he reached into his coat pocket and slid a small envelope across the table. "I didn't mean to cross any lines," he said, "but there's something I think you should see, about someone I used to care about." Emily hesitated, then took the envelope. She didn't open it right away. Her hands were shaking slightly. She could feel something building, like the story wasn't just hers anymore. At that exact moment, a man walked through the diner's front door. Tall, rough-looking, with a stare that made Emily's blood run cold. She instinctively stepped back. Marcus noticed immediately. The man's eyes locked on Emily. "Didn't expect to find you here," he said darkly. Marcus stood up, placing himself between them without hesitation. Emily's past had just caught up with her, and suddenly, the necklace, the silence, the fear, it all made sense. And Marcus realized he was far more involved than he ever intended to be. Emily's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't seen that man in over a year, but every part of her body still remembered the fear. His name was Derek, an ex-boyfriend, if you could even call him that, who had once controlled every part of her life. The way she dressed, who she spoke to, and especially what she believed in. He was the reason she stopped wearing the cross openly. The bruises she covered, the silence she carried, it all began with him. Marcus stepped between them instinctively, standing taller than he had in any boardroom. Derek scoffed, clearly not expecting someone like Marcus to be part of the picture. "Didn't know you had new friends," Derek said, his voice low and mocking. "Big shot customer, huh?" Emily's hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the table. "Leave," she said quietly. Derek didn't move. Instead, he smacked and leaned on the counter like he owned the place. "You're still pretending to be something you're not," he said, his eyes flicking toward the silver chain just barely hidden beneath her collar. "Still hiding behind that necklace." Marcus clenched his jaw. "She doesn't owe you anything," he said, but even as he spoke, his mind was racing. Derek wasn't just a past problem. He was the storm Emily had been trying to stay ahead of. And now that storm had walked right into their lives. Before things could escalate further, the diner manager came out from the back. Sensing trouble, he told Derek to leave or he'd call the police. Derek held up his hands, smiled in that smug, slow way that made Emily sick, and walked out without another word. But his eyes made it clear, this wasn't over. Emily sat down in the booth, her knees weak. "He found me," she whispered. "I thought I was done with him." Marcus sat across from her, no longer the billionaire CEO, just a man trying to understand how deep this went. He looked at the envelope she still hadn't opened and knew now wasn't the time. There was something bigger happening here. And then his phone buzzed. One message. Unknown number. Just a photo of Emily leaving the diner yesterday. Someone was watching her. The danger wasn't just Derek. It was something else. Something darker. And suddenly, Marcus realized helping her might count a far greater cost than he ever imagined. Emily stared at the photo on Marcus's phone, her face pale. "He's not just watching me," she whispered. "He's tracking me." Her voice trembled, but there was something new in her eyes too. Determination. She was tired of running, tired of hiding. Marcus stood and locked the diner door. "We're not going to let him control your life anymore." He handed her the envelope he had been carrying around for days. "I was going to wait, but I think you need to see this now." Inside was a photo of a young woman. Emily recognized her immediately, Marcus's sister. But what stunned her was what the photo showed. The same silver cross around her neck. The same one Emily wore now. "My sister wore it until the day she disappeared," Marcus said. "I didn't know what it meant back then. I didn't understand how much she was hurting, until I met you." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Where is she now?" Marcus shook his head. "I don't know, but I think helping you might help me find peace with what I couldn't do for her." Just then, headlights flashed through the diner window. A black car pulled up and parked across the street. Derek stepped out, but he wasn't alone this time. Two men in dark jackets followed behind him. Marcus's phone buzzed again. Another message. Asterisk walk away. "All this gets worse, asterisk." Emily backed away from the window. "We need to call the police." "I already did," Marcus said, "and I called someone else too." Before she could ask who, another car screeched around the corner. A woman jumped out, mid-30s, tough and determined. She ran toward the diner. Marcus's breath caught. Lena. It was his sister. "I saw the photo," she said, out of breath. "I knew that cross. I had to come." Emily stood frozen as Lena embraced her brother. "You have no idea what I've been through," Lena whispered, "but I know what she's facing." Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Derek and his men turned to run, but it was too late. Police cruisers surrounded them within seconds. As the chaos died down, Emily stepped outside. The air felt lighter. She reached for her necklace, and this time she let it show. But as Marcus turned back toward the diner, he noticed something odd. On the ground near Derek's car, another envelope, with his name on it. And inside was a photo of Kim taken this morning. Someone else was watching, and this story was far from over. Marcus stared at the photo for a long moment. The angle, the distance, it was taken from across the street that morning as he walked into the diner. Someone had been following him too. He looked around, but the street was now filled with flashing lights and police officers securing the scene. Whoever left the envelope was already gone. Still, something had changed. The fear that had hung over Emily like a shadow for so long was finally beginning to lift. Derek and the men with him were taken into custody. Officers confirmed that Derek had violated a restraining order filed months earlier in another state. He wouldn't be getting near Emily again. Back inside the diner, Lena sat beside Emily at the corner booth. The two women talked quietly, sharing stories of pain, survival, and faith. Emily learned that Lena had left everything behind years ago when her world collapsed. She'd gone into hiding, too ashamed to reach out to her brother. But seeing that cross again, Emily's quiet strength had pulled her back. Marcus watched them, feeling something he hadn't in years: peace. Not because everything was fixed, but because for once he hadn't ignored what really mattered. He had spent years chasing success, trying to bury the guilt of losing his sister. But in helping Emily, he had found her again, and in the process, found a part of himself he thought was long gone. A week later, the diner reopened after a short break. Emily returned to work, but things were different now. She wore her necklace freely, no longer afraid of who might see. Customers noticed, some smiled, a few even thanked her. Marcus visited less often, not because he stopped caring, but because Emily no longer needed saving. She had found her voice again. Before leaving town, Lena gave Emily the necklace she once wore, a second cross. "This one helped me through the worst," she said. "Now maybe it can do the same for you." On his last visit, Marcus left a note tucked under Emily's coffee cup. It read, "You reminded me that faith isn't weakness. It's courage in disguise. Keep showing it." Emily smiled as she read it. The past hadn't disappeared, but it no longer defined her. And as she looked out the window into the quiet evening light, she felt something she hadn't in a long time: hope.